Hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here. I am so excited to be back with you for another Meet the Maker live. I love chatting with makers and getting to know them better. And I have known Jazzy for a little while, and so I am super excited to get to have a real face-to-face-ish conversation with her and get to know her better. I can't wait for you to get to know her and her designs and all of the amazing, wonderful, creative things she is doing. So let's welcome her.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much
Welcome.
for having me. I'm so excited. You sent me a message about doing this, and I was like, oh
I I love, first of all, I always say I do this a little bit selfishly because I love to talk to people, and people have the most amazing stories. It's always so fascinating to me. So when people are like, "I'm honored," I'm like, "I do it very selfishly." But I'm glad you want to talk to me.
my gosh. Well, I honestly, truly, I feel so honored. Like it's one of those things when especially when you're an independent designer and doing your own thing, having anyone even be like, "Do you want to come and talk about yourself?" You're like, someone wants to know about me.
I do. So how's your week going? What day
It's
are we on? We're on Thursday.
Yes, we are on Thursday. It's good so far. I've been spending a lot of time out in the community at blood drives this week and just kind of seeing a little bit of everything that happens on the donation side of blood because that's my day-to-day job. And then next week I kind of go back into the lab in the hospital. So it's kind of been a nice break and it's been a bit of an easier month. So I'm enjoying having some downtime, some time for me, some time for knitting and crocheting and catching up on a temperature blanket that's a few months behind.
I don't think you're alone in that. I feel like that's one of those projects that like you get a lot of enthusiasm for at the beginning and then it kind of like slows down a little bit and then at some point there you go, "Oh my gosh." And you like ramp back up a little bit.
Yeah, I was really good through January. I stayed on track all through January. And then I decided I hated the way I was doing my temperature blanket. So I was like, oh, I should change that then. Since I'm only a month in, I still have time. I can change all these things. And I tried like 6 other ways to try to do it that I thought I might like, and I didn't like any of them, including entrelac. I went through and I tried to knit a whole entrelac thing, and I got all the setup rows done, and I was like most of the way through January, and I was like, oh, I don't like this either. So I like pulled that all back out and went back to the original way I was doing it. So it's like I've got like miter squares. They're not, the ends are not sewn in. So it's got like the low and the high for every day. And I'm hoping it's not as crazy at the end as I think it's going to be, but we'll see.
You know
So
what though? Okay. First of all, as I'm sure you know, I'm a person who loves color. And one of the things I love seeing people's temperature projects because the randomness of it always seems like just about right. You know what I mean? Like when
yeah.
people like really, my mom is like, and then I will do this one, and then I will do this one, and then I will do this one, and I'm like, and then I'll reach in and pull the next color out. What did we get? Oh, we're going with that one. We'll do 7 rows. You know, I think there's a certain amount of over planning that can make those things that contain a lot of colors and stuff um, look a little forced. But when you have to go with whatever the temperature is, like you don't really have a choice. And I think they always turn out so interesting.
Oh, 100%. And I'm like you. I love bright colors, which unfortunately, like I live in Boston now, so Boston is not a colorful city like the South is and like Florida was. So I keep choosing these really bright colors for my temperature blanket, and like I have the squares that like these are all the colors that are in it. And I'm like, oh, it's perfect. It's so me. And like, right, I'm obsessed with this corner because all the pinks. But it's like I was sitting there and looking at it, and my boyfriend was on board with this one. He helped me choose the colors and lay them out in the aisle. I think there's a picture on Instagram even of like all the colors laid out in the aisle and trying to figure out what goes where and like planning this. And we did it on December 31st. So, New Year's Eve project because I wasn't going to do one this year because I was like, I don't need to buy any more yarn. I have too much yarn as it is, and you can't even see the bottom half. But I was like, you can never have too much. And it's like, I don't have enough of anything in that. So I should probably just buy all new ones that are all the same lot number for a temperature blanket.
That is important. That is an important thing to consider. Absolutely. I love the pattern you've chosen. That's different from anything I've seen. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time on Google looking through Google Images and going through Ravelry and going through people's blogs. And it was one of those that like I saw a C2C crochet one that I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I really like the diagonals. And I was like, okay, well, I do both knitting and crochet, but I'm much more of a knitter than I am a crocheter. So I was like, okay, well, what would be kind of like the knit version? I was like, well, what about a miter square? And that's where that kind of came in.
I love it. I love it. So, do you do one of those for each week?
One for each day. So it's
Whoa.
1,104 stitches every day. And I start with like 7 stitches and then collapse it from the center. Um, and so it gets me about 1,000 stitches a day, but it works. I'm
Oh my
currently in
goodness.
the middle of March, but it's like I'm getting into some of the brighter colors and the more fun colors. So I'm finally like getting that like momentum back to keep going.
I love it. I love it. What's the weather been like by you? Probably cooler than you'd prefer if you were have recently moved from Florida.
Well, so I've been living in Boston for like 5 years now. This is year number
Oh,
5.
okay. You know what to expect then.
You know what to expect, but you never get used to the cold. So it's like 70 and everyone's like, oh my God, it's so beautiful out. And everyone's wearing short sleeves and shorts. And I'm like still wearing a cardigan most of the time. And like, I've got leggings on when I walk the dog. So slowly but surely it's starting to warm up. It's like 70s overnight. It's still like in the 50s. So enough that you can have your windows open and get a nice breeze and like be cold at night, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But
This is my
what's
favorite
going
time of
on
the
where you
year.
are? What's
This
going
is
on
my
in
favorite
Florida?
time of the year. We have been similar-ish temperatures. We were at 68 today, and I'm like, this is perfection. That's
It's just enough
my
that you can
favorite
like
spot.
wear the cute cozy knits without being like overheated and warm or having to like switch to cotton for the summer.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love it. So you've hinted a little bit about yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to share, other hobbies you might have, what you do. Tell us a little more about what you do during the day so that we can put
I'll,
context around the lab and the blood and all the things.
so I'll start off saying I'm a dog mom. I have a golden retriever. He's the love of my life. He'll probably poke his head in just to say hi at some point. He's lying right here beside me. His name is Tuck. He's 7 years old now and like he's just the cutest thing in the world. But by day, I am actually a pathologist. So I am a doctor. I went through medical school at University of Central Florida down in Orlando. Fabulous time. If anyone's considering medicine, please go do it. You don't have to be like the smartest person in the room to do it. You just have to be willing to put in the effort and study hard and be willing to learn and adapt. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. But I knew kind of going to medical school that I didn't necessarily want to do direct patient care all of the time. So I went into pathology. And what that means is anything that comes off of the body, out of the body, and deals with the lab is in my domain. So anytime someone has surgery, anytime they go to like a dermatologist and a mole gets biopsied, that gets sent to the pathology department. That is then like they kind of look at it, gross it, describe the growth, what we're seeing like as with our normal eyes, and then it gets sectioned and ready for a microscope. And we actually make microscopic diagnoses based on the types of cells that are present, based on what we're seeing pattern wise. And we can tell if something's cancerous or benign. We make the diagnoses for the doctor to then give back to the patient. So we're like the doctor's doctor. The other side of that, and kind of what my job is this year, is that we run the lab. So any blood work you have done, anything that's not like point of care and can't be done on a machine in your doctor's office falls under our domain. And this year, especially, what I'm focusing on is actually transfusion and blood banking. So all the blood for a hospital. And what that means is anytime someone comes in for a transfusion, anytime they're transfusion reliant, if they come in with the disease and need to get apheresis done, which is just taking blood out of your body, spinning it really, really, really fast to separate it into different components, and then sucking off the bad stuff and giving you back everything else and replacing what's bad with what's good. So we can use it for sickle cell disease if they're in crisis. We can use it for people who have TTP, which is a disease where like you have antibodies attacking things in your body. We can use it for autoimmune diseases. So if people have really, really bad flares of like MS or like MG, then we can take the antibodies off and really help their recovery speed along. So it's a lot of fun to do all that stuff. And then when I come home from work, I'm very involved. I knit every day. I touch yarn every day. It's like my calm down mechanism for myself. I have so many things that I need to get out for testing. I'm the worst because like I have everything. It's all written up. It's all made. It's ready to go. But I hate the photography side of it. I hate taking pictures of what I make, which doesn't like help when you're trying to market it. So like everything
I
just kind of
never would have guessed that though, because your pictures are beautiful.
Oh, thank you. But no, it's like I'm a little bit like perfectionistic, especially like type A personality. So I'm like, oh, it's off a little bit. Oh, it has this wrong. Oh, I need to retake that. So it's like I'm so careful with like proofreading my pattern like 20 times before it goes to testers and doing everything. And then like the photos are just the hang up. So I've been working really hard on like forcing myself to take the photos. And I think it's the other side of it is like I grew up modeling. So I'm always more comfortable in front of the camera than behind it. So I'm like, I know what I want things to look like, and I have this idea in my mind's eye, and I don't have the education, the know-how necessarily to make the camera side of it work. So I have like to use photos with my phone. I have a DSLR. I have professional lighting. I have makeup kits. I have all the flat lay stuff. I've tried 10,000 different things. But one of the things I actually really love lately is, so my parents just redid their deck in Travertine, or Travertine. I don't know how you say it. And it's like this limestone rock. It is the perfect matte background. So if anyone needs a matte background, go buy yourself a piece of travertine. And like I've started using that for everything. And it's the sunlight on it kind of makes it glow and shimmer a little bit. So you get like that backlight almost. Just a really subtle one, but it's just enough to like help reduce some of the harsh shadows that you get from like using studio lights instead. So, and then
well, that's a great tip.
Yeah, little did I know. And then when I'm not knitting and doing other things, I work really hard. I'm a few days behind, and I apologize to everyone, but I'm a few days behind with posting. But I run the pattern testers group, and then both the pattern testers and pattern releases Instagram pages, just trying to help promote other independent designers. I think it's really important that there's this platform out there, because otherwise, how do you find anyone? How do you find something you like if you don't even know to look for them? So we really try to make it the best thing that we can to just get things out there, get names out there, get pictures of patterns. And for pattern testers, we have a Facebook group that's associated with it. I'm working on a website, but it's like I've only got 24 hours in a day, and I really need to make this a full-time job rather than a part-time fun thing. But I'm working on a website to try to help speed things along that way and to make it a little bit more intuitive. And then with the pattern testers and pattern releases Instagram, with the pattern releases, we just ask for your pattern within 7 days of release. That's all. That's the only criteria. It has to be submitted within 7 days. There's a form online that just asks for the pattern name, what the blurb you go with it, like a little blurb to go with it that you want it to say, because we want it to be your words. We don't want to add our own hashtags. We don't want to represent you in a way you don't want to be represented. So it's just kind of really like important to me, kind of a passion project that I've been working on. And like, I know I'm a couple days behind. It's just been a busy week. But I promise I'll get to it. So anyone who has submitted them, like, don't freak out. I promise they're coming. They will get posted.
I just have to take a minute to thank you and pat you on the back. I don't know how you have time to keep all of that stuff running on top of your own business and working full time. And you do a beautiful job with the Pattern Testers Facebook group, and it is such a valuable resource as a designer to be able to go there and reach out and find new testers, which to me is something that's really important. It's wonderful to have a few testers that you use over and over and over again, but it's always nice to have a new set of eyes to say, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, or, yeah. And you're a great resource for that. The other thing is I think it's a great resource for crocheters who are interested in getting into pattern testing, but don't know, how to go about that. And it's not a free for all is the other thing. I've been a part of some other groups where it's just like find each other, and you make sure that designers set out a real specific expectations, which I think is important for the testers to know what's expected of them. And then you're really good about making sure that everybody's abiding by guidelines, which is like really above and beyond and super helpful. So you're amazing. It's okay to be a little behind.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it's normal to, I'm telling you, because if it's not normal, then I'm also not normal, to have like 7 designs that you just haven't quite gotten around to putting out to testing yet. It's fine.
Yeah, and with the pattern testers group, I just want to say, like, we don't have any criteria for like you have to have done so many tests before you can join. We actually, like, if you know how to knit, if you know how to crochet, you are welcome to join the group. The only thing we have a criteria for is you have to read and sign the rules before volunteering. That is the only rule before you, like, if you volunteer for a test before you've read and signed the rules, you will get removed from the group and blocked. And profiles have to be, like, your Facebook profile has to be your actual profile, not a business one, because we found a lot of people, especially early on, would just shut down their page and make a new one and come right back. And it was leading to a lot of issues. And so we put in, like, you have to have your real profile, you have to have your name on your profile so that people know who they're interacting with too. Because if I was sitting there and I was like, oh, I'm just like this random person on Instagram, I could change my name tomorrow and you would never know who I was. You would never know if that was still me. So that's kind of why we
Right.
put that in place. And like, I know some people really don't like it, and I apologize to them that don't, but that template is really just like, it helps us make sure that all the check boxes are there so we can approve things quickly. I do my best to look at everything like as soon as it comes up or as soon as I see it pop up on my phone, but some days are busier, so that's why we have a 24-hour window. I know some people are like, well, I did it the same way so-and-so did it, and it's, well, that might work for their project, but there might be different requirements for yours. So we tried to lay everything out in the rules. The rules have the whole template in it. I put links in there to a blank template so that people can just fill it out. We have an automatic form that if you just want to answer the questions, it will make the template for you. And then recently, back in February, I actually sat down and I wrote a huge, big, long document about what's required for every single field to try to help explain to people. And we tried to, like, we've tweaked the template over time to make it more friendly and try to like put more there. So there's not this like, well, I didn't know what was expected of me as a designer submitting that. And then the other thing I just want to mention is designers, we will go to bat for you if you're having problems with the tester, if you're not getting a response. We reach out to that tester. We will email them, we will message them, we will try to get in touch with them and try to help you resolve the situation. Because sometimes people are just like, you know what, I screwed up. This is like way over my head. I'm in way too deep. Or I've had like, people have had family members end up in the hospital, or they've lost their job, or they've had something happen, or they get really sick. Like, we had someone get COVID in the middle of a test and they were like, I just haven't even been online. Like, I'm so sorry. And we do our best to help resolve it. If we can't resolve it, then there's a problem. We will like remove people from the group. And it goes both ways. Like, for testers, if they reach out to us and they're like, I've messaged this designer multiple times, I'm supposed to be testing for them, I haven't gotten responses, we will get in touch with a designer. We have removed designers who have just been like completely AWOL after sending a pattern out and then like coming back on the due date being like, where are all my notes, where are all my photos? And it's like, that's not what this is about. This is about communication. It's about building that like relationship with each other. And I think it's so important. You said it already. Like, you have to have that fresh set of eyes. You have people who know you, who know your patterns, who are like your OG, amazing original testers. You can count on them to the ends of the earth. But you also know that they know the way you write. They know what you mean. They've like seen it all before. So you need someone who has no idea about your pattern, your style, or anything else to come in and be like, you know what, that doesn't make sense. Or like, oh my gosh, I love the way you worded this. This is so clear. Or, you know, I think this needs a pictorial, like tutorial. Like, can you put pictures in? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it really helps you as a designer kind of refine it and make it that beginner friendly pattern. Because at least for me, I want anyone to be able to pick up their needles or pick up a crochet hook and make one of my patterns. I don't want someone to have to be like, oh, I don't understand this. What do you mean by that? So I try to like, I write everything out. I put there's a weird complicated stitch. There's a whole photo tutorial at the end of the pattern. Like, I think it's something that we all, especially being on both sides, because I'll test for people occasionally too when time allows, is just something that you really like, you want to put the best quality work out there. And I see a lot of designers who put something out there, it hasn't been tested, hasn't even been read through, and there's all sorts of spelling mistakes. And like, that's a major pet peeve for me. So having someone else's eyes catching those, because you don't always see your own, or the way you spell something. Like, my parents are Canadian. I was born in Canada before moving to the States. So like, some of my spelling, sometimes I'll add a U in there, or I'll use an English spelling of something instead of an American spelling. I've had people catch those and I'm like, oh my goodness, you have to at least be consistent. Whichever one you use, you just have to be consistent. So like, I tell myself these things, but it's so helpful. And we're so appreciative to all the testers. We're approaching 5,000 members. So there's lots and lots of people in that group. It's actually really exciting. And we were just over 5,000. Then I went through and removed everyone who hadn't signed the rules and we dropped back down. So it's okay. We're getting there. I'm like really excited, and hopefully it will continue growing and continue being something wonderful and a great resource to everybody.
Yeah. And it's my favorite when somebody's like, thank you for picking me for a test. It's my first one. I'm always like, yay. I love it when people like dive in for the first time. It's so much fun.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing is like a lot of people, I've gotten messages from people being like, I had no idea what testing even was until like I found your group. And like I was like, oh well, that's even more exciting because I'm like so excited to experience a whole nother side of the yarn community now and build like a whole new set of friendships. Because
Yeah.
I have some people who have tested for me that have become like my closest friends in this community. And I just adore them. And like they are my little close knit group who like if I have something, I'll message and be like, what do you think of this? Well, like, let me get your opinion on these. And they get pictures of things I'm sure that they don't want to deal with me all the time. But like I send them photos of stitch markers when I'm thinking like if I'm doing a new stitch marker thing and I kind of need an opinion, I'll be like, hey, you guys, can I just ask you real quick, what do you think of these? Which one of these do you like the best? Because I can't decide between these three. And like I know that the general population is only going to see what I put out. So like they're never going to know about the alternatives, but I'm going to be sitting there always wondering like, was that one just a little better? So having that extra opinion too from making those relationships with testers who have become friends, so helpful. Absolutely amazing. I can't thank the people who have been willing to test for me enough and the people who have become my friends to be just like the amazing, wonderful people that they are.
Yes, and it is a huge community builder. And just, I'm going to put a little plug in here. If you don't know what pattern testing is, I'm going to do a whole series in June about what is pattern testing, what's the process, how to become a pattern tester, what to look for, all the things. So that is coming. And I will definitely be mentioning the Pattern Tester Facebook group because it's such a huge resource. So yay.
We're going to talk offline afterwards because one of the things is that we're trying to put a website together and build a website out for it so that there's an external platform for people who don't use Facebook. So as we get that running, maybe we can get you to repost everything and do like guest features on the website.
Yeah,
but we can talk about it offline.
Wonderful. Yeah, that would be great. I would love to know about your crafting journey, where you started. Did you learn to knit or crochet first? Who taught you? Did you teach yourself? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I was the fidgety child. As you can see, I'm still moving. I'm still fidgeting. I talk with my hands. I am incapable of just like sitting still. I always have been. And we were actually up with my grandparents. My dad's parents used to live in Niagara, like not too far outside Niagara Falls. Absolutely beautiful area. And I was fidgeting really badly one day, and my grandmother used to do a lot of handicrafts and macrame and everything else. And she's like, we should get you crafting. Maybe that will help you. Maybe that will keep you occupied as you're sitting there. Because otherwise, I was a child who was like, I would run from one person to the other when they were talking. Like my granddad would talk, and I'd be standing in front of him, and then my grandmother would answer, and I'd go running across the room to her. So she was like, let's just try getting you to do this. So she and my mother actually worked together and kind of taught me how to knit. And very quickly afterwards taught me how to crochet. And I was really bad at crocheting when I started. I will fully admit to being terrible at crochet as I started. But I picked up knitting really quickly and I really loved it. So like I made scrunchies, I made rugs, I made blankets, I made like the simplest like straight projects because I couldn't figure out how to do any of the fancy stuff when I was like really little. But it was something when I was about 7 years old. And as I grew up, it's just something that stuck. I got better at crochet with time. And as I got older, I learned how to cable. I fell in love with cabling very early. I started seeing it on things. I was like, I want to do that. I want to make that. I want to like figure out how to do that. And like YouTube wasn't really a thing for tutorials at that stage of my life. So it was one of those that like you either go to the library and get a book or you ask someone to show you, or like I would kind of play with it until I got it. My mom also had these like vintage knitting machines from the 70s, which I was just I have them. She gave them all to me. I've got one here, and it's this big, super long thing. It's about 4 feet long. It has a little carriage that you run back and forth. You can do cables on it. You can do stockinette. You can do multiple colors. She's got the serger and the ribber and all these attachments. I was like, it blew my mind when she finally pulled them out because I was a teenager when she pulled them out. I didn't even know she had them for like years and years. And they were just sitting under the bed, not being used. But she made a whole bunch of like sweaters for my dad on them way back when. And like he still has all the sweaters. So it was one of those that like now I have them and I've been using them just sort of like use up some of the yarn that's back here and making things. And they just do beautiful, amazing things. But as I got older, I was knitting more. I was starting to cable. I was starting to do increases, decreases, different sizes. And I really quickly figured out that I liked making things. I liked figuring things out. I liked putting my own stitches together. I didn't necessarily, I would get a pattern. I'd be like, well, I want to change it these ways. And like I would start changing things. And then eventually I just stopped using a lot of patterns just to make what I wanted because I had this image in my head. And as I kind of learned more about knitting, I kind of realized how I could make it and how I could make it look the way I wanted. So I started playing with it more and more. I started designing for myself. I started designing just things for family members and making different scarves and putting it together. And through my teenage years, it never occurred to me to write it down and share it. I had everything written down in case I ever had to go back and fix it, or in case anyone ever pulled a stitch, or if I wanted to make another one in a different color. But I never thought about sharing it. And then I think it was 2017 when someone was like, oh, you know, you should really think about like putting these out there for other people too. Like I think people would love them. And I tested my first pattern that year shortly thereafter because I was like, well, we'll just try with one. We'll see how it goes. And it was really, really well received. And I was just shocked that anyone would want to ever make something that came out of my brain. I never, ever thought that that was going to be a real thing. So it slowly kind of spiraled and kind of like snowballed down the hill. And I put more and more out there. And I was certain stages of my training, I had more time to do things. So I tried to get out more when I could. When things slowed down, I had like a backlog that I could still publish and put out there. And then like as things slowed down a little bit more, I got really busy. There have been I don't think I've released anything in like the last couple months. It just breaks my heart because I have so much I want to put out and I want to share. But the other thing too, and I know it's like, I just want to mention it because I think it's something that doesn't get talked about enough, is when designers are pricing patterns, because it's something, and it's actually something someone messaged me on Etsy about a couple days ago, because they were like, oh, like your prices are kind of high. And I'm like, they're not that high compared to the community. And because I'm like, I'm like $1.75 for cup cozies or something. And when you think about the fees that come out of that on the designer side, we're making almost no money off of that. It's the companies that we're selling through that are making money. And I don't think people realize that when they're saying these things. Or like when you buy a pattern on Ravelry, you have a 30-cent PayPal fee that gets paid by the designer plus a percentage, plus Ravelry takes fees out of it. So there's very little that makes it to an independent designer. So please don't question designer prices. Like I'm on the lower end. I know I'm on the lower end. I've had other designers message me and ask me to increase my prices because I'm well below market. Which is not, it's honestly not a good thing, but I hate increasing prices because I want it to be affordable to everyone. I want it to be cheaper than that cup of Starbucks coffee. And don't get me wrong, I love my Starbucks, especially now that they have the color changing cups. I went to Starbucks 2 days ago and they have color changing cups now. And I'm just like, oh, well, I need all of these. But it's total aside. But that's why I have cup cozies too, because I make them for the Starbucks size cups and they all fit them perfectly. But no, that's like designer pricing. It's individualized, but please don't ask a designer why their price is what it is. If you can't afford it, most of designers, if you just send them a message, they'll work with you. We have so many free copies that we're willing to give away. I never want someone to not be able to make something because they can't afford the $3 for a pattern for like a scarf or something. So it's just putting it out there that like fees drive pricing, and like with Etsy increasing and with local yarn shops selling patterns for designers and everything else, a lot of them are making like less than $1 of what you're paying is making that to an independent designer. So PSA, but in the kind of like aside of the question, but
yeah, that's tough. I find in talking with both people who sell finished items and designers who sell patterns, it's hard for us to put a value on our time. And as I was discussing with you before we jumped on here, I am currently working on a shawl pattern, and I think I have started over about 10 times. So if you prorate out the hours I spend on it versus what you pay for the pattern, it's at a significant deficit of what you would pay hourly. I was just talking with some friends the other day. Her son was going to be a nanny for some kids down the street, and they wanted to pay him $8 an hour. And she said he could go work at Dairy Queen for $15 an hour. And yeah. So in comparison,
yeah,
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be one of those people who tells you, I think your prices are too low.
Yeah, no, I know. It's one of those like I've got to announce an increase before I actually do it, and then I always feel bad, and I'm like, well, I'll do it in a few days. I'll do it in a few days, and like keep pushing it out. But there is an increase in prices coming, especially because I've got a wonderful, amazing friend she's on here. She actually commented. I can see it on this side of my screen, which is probably that side of the screen from like what I'm actually looking at. But she runs Swanky Mountain Yarn Shop out in Gillette, Wyoming, I believe it is. But she is wonderful, and she's got a couple of my patterns in her store. And we realized that like with some of the lower cost patterns, I would actually be paying for anyone who bought them. So there is a price increase coming. And it's one of those, it's a fact of life with inflation coming across the board. Unfortunately, I think you're going to see a lot of designers' prices increasing too. And you already said it. What we spend making things and what we spend, even the yarn that goes into it, the time that we put into it, frogging things, remaking them, writing a pattern out, maybe checking it 10 times to make sure that the spelling's right, every row is correct, making sure that the pictures are there if we need to do it, the equipment to take photos, the equipment to like have those setups that we need to like look professional. It's so crazy. Like there's so much money that we're investing that is not getting returned for most people. And I know people talk about going, oh, full-time working with big companies. That's why they're able to do it full time, at least in my opinion, because they have someone backing them. It's really hard to make this a full-time job that can support you, support your family, and especially keeping it with the public being happy about things.
And I think while we're down this rabbit hole,
yes,
I think full transparency for people who I didn't understand this until I was a lot deeper in the design community. A lot of people who are working with yarn companies and who are putting the paid partnership labels, that does not often, almost all the time, that does not mean they are being paid by the company to make something. It most often means they're being gifted yarn to create the design. There are very, very, very few designers who actually have paid contracts with yarn companies that get paid on top, that get paid like a salary or money on top of whatever they make from selling their designs.
Yes, and I think it's a super important distinction to make from people who actually have like a contract for things versus those who are getting gifted yarn for patterns. And I would love if there was like a way that we could make that clear in the community, because I think it helps. Like, because I think a lot of people just have this misconception of what things are and like what these paid partnerships are actually all about.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, took you down.
That was like wonderfully educational, I think.
Getting into all the weird topics. I apologize.
Oh no, absolutely. This is wonderful. Okay, so I love that you in talking with a lot of people.
Oh goodness.
The typical pattern of people who were taught very young. I was forced into knitting as a 20-something by my mother. That's a whole nother story. But people who learned very young, I find that a lot of times they create for a little while, then they hit like preteen, teenage years, and it kind of falls away, and then they come back to it in adulthood. You kept going.
Yeah. So I am actually the person who I would like knit in class to keep my hands busy, because I was the person who couldn't pay attention unless my hands were busy. And taking notes was not enough. So I like all through high school, all through college, all through medical school, I was a girl sitting in back knitting, and like people would be like, you should be paying attention. I'm like, I am paying attention. I can't remember what they said if my hands aren't busy. Like otherwise I'm off in my own little world doodling or doing whatever. So no, I think
that. What a great tool for you.
Yeah. And honestly, I've never been diagnosed as ADD, ADHD. I'm pretty sure I have it on some level with a self-diagnosis, but like it's one of those that I think for those who have trouble concentrating, who find that they can't pay attention because they're always getting distracted, try it. See if it's something, even if it is the most simple, like garter stitch stockinette, single crochet rows, just back and forth, just something to keep you high tech, something to keep you busy. And so that it is taking away that like need to fidget Because some people tap their knees, some people tap a pen or bite on a pen or whatever. There's actually been a ton of studies that show movement while you're learning. If you redo those movements when you're trying to recall something, it brings it back quicker and it helps you cement that, so that muscle memory connects to like that intellectual memory. So that's the other side of it too. So like definitely try it. 100% recommend based on my own personal experience.
I love it. That's excellent. Uh, what a great coping mechanism for you.
Yeah.
Whatever, diagnosis or no diagnosis, if you find something like that that helps you just flourish more, what a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your business name and how you came up with it and all that.
So I have Rosy Birch Designs. So first of all, I will say that it was kind of something I went through about it, probably 100 different potential names to find one that I liked. I think like most of us.
Mhm.
So way back when I started my yarn Instagram, it was just Jazzy Knits and Knots, and then I saw tons of other knits and knots, and I was like, well, that's not really unique. I felt I needed something a little bit more recognizable, and it kind of was something that. Sorry, I'm totally talking too much. One sec. My
Totally
obsession
fine.
with Yeti cups and Coca-Cola. Um, so it was something that when I started really kind of like looking inside, thinking about things, and figuring out what was kind of important to me, the first thing that really popped into my mind was that I always try to have a really positive outlook. It is really important for me to see the glasses half full, look at whatever I can through, like my dad says, I wear rose-colored glasses throughout my whole life. So I was like, I really wanted to incorporate kind of like that happy, outgoing kind of feel to it. And then it was also that a lot of what I make is inspired by where I've been, things that I've seen in my life, experiences I've had. And I'm very outdoorsy, which you would never guess meeting me, I'm sure, because I'm very girly too. I'm like the person who wears heels hiking, which not always the smartest choice. But so it was when I was kind of thinking about it a little bit more, I was like, okay, well, the one thing that has always been a constant in my life and something that I've always admired and just I have a complete and utter attraction to are birch trees. So when I was born, there were birch trees outside the hospital room. When I came home, my parents brought me home as a baby. There were birch trees outside my bedroom as a baby. Every time we went north to see family, friends, whatever, I was always obsessed with every birch tree I saw. That and moose, I have a love affair with moose. They are my favorite animal, but I couldn't really figure out a way to put moose in there. So birch trees kind of became the birch part of it. So it was like this rosy birch. And I was like, oh, I really like the sound of that. And I was like, the designs got tacked on just because I was like, well, I don't want to say Rosy Birch knits, Rosy Birch crochets, because I kind of do both. And I was also like, I really love kind of jewelry making and playing with metal and doing all sort of that stuff. So I was like, designs covers everything. And it was right at a time where I was like playing with dyeing yarn, and I love dyeing my own yarn just for me. I'm not big on selling it or putting it out there for anyone, but there are things that I'm like, I dyed this yarn and I've used it to make something. So that is a very like, it kind of was all encompassing, but it really was based out of that. And it was kind of prompted by the fact that I made a decision that I wanted to sell stitch markers, and really like put those out there because I was making them for myself all the time anyway. So I was like, you know what, this could be something that I share. Everyone likes them. I get comments every time I go to like a local yarn shop around Boston, or like my friends see me knitting. They're like, oh, that's so pretty. And like, I've had people ask me to make them into earrings or make them into like a pendant for a necklace. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this just to protect myself, I need to incorporate. And like, it kind of started the like down the path of like actually making it into a proper business rather than just like a hobby thing I was doing just for me. And then so I have not finished doing so yet, and I'm so bad because I incorporated like literally 2 years ago now. But I've got some very early patterns that still say Jazzy Knits and Knots on them. So I'm working on like transitioning everything over. Everything that is new since has all been under Rosy Birch Designs. But it was really just like finding that what represented me. And like when I talked to my friends who knew me who were outside of the knitting world, and kind of I showed them a few different variations and things I liked, and they were like, well, this, like all of them came back and were like, this is the one that speaks to us, this is the one that seems most to you, this is the one that really captures you most. And I'm like, okay. So it kind of helped like having that outside opinion too.
That's so special. I love that it's representative of you. That's really neat.
Yeah. it was important to me because I see a lot of people who are like made by so and so, or going down paths where they're like have something that's just, it's very much them, and I've always admired that. And I'm like, I want a business of like, if I'm going to run it, if it's going to be me putting my time and effort into it, I want it to show as me. And it's one of those that like my name is, I go by Jazzy. My full name's Jasmine. So professionally, I'm always Jasmine. I like, my friends call me Jazzy. And I was like, if I try to start using one or the other, is it going to confuse things? So it was really important to me that like to emulate that in some way, but also to have that like kind of ethereal feel to it still.
I love it. I love it. It rolls off the tongue very nicely to me. I like the combination of Rosy Birch designs.
And I like the RBD, like when it's written out too, it looks really pretty because it's all the loopy letters. And I really love loopy fancy letters.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful. So tell us, what is the last project you finished up?
The last project I finished, oh my goodness. Okay, the last project I finished was actually gloves for my boyfriend. He is a big hunter, fisherman, very outdoorsy. He hunts all winter and all spring with his dad and his brother out of Maryland. And he wanted gloves, and I can't show them to you because they're wrapped up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have wrapped them yet, but I did. But they're really beautiful. They come up and they start down here, they come up, and they're actually double hand gloves so that they have an inner coat and an outer coat. And then the fingers come up and it leaves his shooting fingers exposed from basically just the last knuckle on. And then the other two fingers are covered individually. But they're absolutely beautiful. The other thing that I finished recently, I made socks for my dad. And I can show you the ones I made for myself that he fell in love with, that he was like, oh, I want a pair. My dad loves handmade socks, so he gets all the socks I make. But I made beautiful socks for myself. Let me put them actually in frame. It'll probably be helpful. And he was like, oh, I love those. I want a pair for myself. And I was like, okay. So I made him a gorgeous pair of socks. And then I sent them down. He's like, they're a little bit tight on my feet. Can you go back and fix them? So I'm in the process of like redoing them right now. And the other thing, pro tip for anyone who does socks, if you are using small skeins or like little like mini skeins, stick them inside as you work and you never have to worry about them getting tangled and you can easily pull on it. I did not know this wasn't a thing until recently when I sent one of my friends a photo and they're like, where's your yarn? I'm like, it's inside. They're like, you put it inside? So yeah, stick it inside. It sits down in the toe and forms like a nice little like bulbous toe, but like you can pull it out without it all getting tangled and like it falling across and rolling across the floor or something.
That's genius. If you were doing a simple enough sock, you could like walk and knit and make the sock.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yep. I've got lots and lots of socks patterns coming. I absolutely love making socks. They're so much fun. I don't know if you can see it. There's a basket that's up there. That is all sock yarn, like beautiful. So we were traveling last summer. And we were down in like Tennessee to see the fireflies, which if you have never been to Tennessee for the fireflies at the start of June, the entire forest lights up. I have a love affair with fireflies anyways, but like the entire forest lights up, and they have blue ghost fireflies, which are only found in 4 forests in the United States. So they're really super rare, but they light up and they have this like whitish blue glow and they stay on for like 30 seconds as they fly around. Whereas everything else is a flashing pattern from like the normal fireflies. So we were down there. We happened upon a yarn shop that was across from a knitting shop owned by a couple. Like he owned the fishing shop, she owned the yarn shop. And it happened to be the same day that Madeline Tosh was there on a trunk show. And I fell in love with all the sock yarn they had, and I brought back way too many skeins. And then when I
never too many.
Well, you say that, except my bag couldn't close when I was flying home. It's slightly problematic. I had to like carry a couple in my hands as I was going through airport security. Story of my life, really. But then when I was back up in Boston, one of my friends is like super big into hiking. She's always going up to like Franconia, New Hampshire. So one of the places that she was going to go for a hike happened to be right across from like this little town that had a really adorable looking yarn shop online. So I was like, oh, well, we'll go up and like, we'll make it a weekend thing. And it happened to be another weekend Mad Tosh was there and I just bought way too much yarn again. So I have a lot of Mad Tosh to sort through because I love the one of a kinds and like these rusty, earthy tones and like these really bright colors that most people probably wouldn't buy. My poor father has like he gets all these funky colored socks because I'm like, well, it's I love the color, so therefore, if you want handmade socks, this is the color they're gonna be. He wears them though. They are his everyday socks. He goes to work in them. He gets compliments on them. So I have all these patterns that I've made for him that I now have to like put into testing and get out there.
That is so cool. That's really neat that one, that your dad loves handmade socks, and two, that you love to make them for him. Okay, I'm going to put up a little challenge for you when we are
Okay.
done. And not even, I mean, it doesn't have to be like right when we're done, but within the next day or two, I want you to get out your Madeline Tosh collection, snap a quick picture, put it in your stories on Instagram and tag me, and I'll be sure to share it too. I want to see this collection.
Oh, it's way too many, but I will do that for you. No problem. I can't
Pick a
promise
few
I'll
of them
anything.
if you don't want to do all of them.
Oh no, I will put all of them out there. I posted a thing a while back because I was making my boyfriend's mom gloves out over the winter. So he wanted like this orange color, like rusty, beautiful rusty thing. It's like called hot what Hot Toddy, I think was the name of it. It was like one of the actual name colors from Mad Tosh. So I put it down with a bunch of the other Mad Toshes I had and sent him pictures and was like, which ones do you want with it? And I ended up putting them on Instagram because I loved all the photos so much. High tech. But it was one of those, I will pull them all down, I will snap a picture, and I will gladly put it out there. It may end up being a feed post because I love yarn. How
Yes,
can anyone
yes.
not love yarn? Heck, you can't put
I
your head under
know.
there, Betty.
I am a proponent of like if you're really in love, you just got to buy it because you're going to regret it if like it's not there. And the special thing about picking up yarn when you're traveling is that whatever you make from that yarn is now going to be a memento of the trip that you took.
Oh, 100%. We went down to Florida a couple months ago and we were down like just outside of Sarasota. We go down every time my parents are in like Tampa Bay. So my boyfriend loves diving. I love like finding little shark's teeth on the beach. I think it's the most fun thing to like find all these baby little shark's teeth. They're from nursery grounds and everything else, and sharks lose their teeth like crazy. So we were down in Inglewood and coming back, we stopped at this yarn store and it's like the yarn's called Octopus Garden. I think it's by Kitty B, like BEA. I am obsessed with this coloring. Like it is the most beautiful blue, like ocean blues, like Caribbean watercolor with the oranges and the reds that you see, like you think typical of like the ruby octopuses. I've been trying to find the right project for it for so long, and like just nothing is speaking to me yet. But then I have things that like I've got some beautiful, beautiful yarn that I was like, that I know what that is becoming right now. Like it's sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
buy it with like an intention, and other times you're just like, I know I need this, I just don't have it yet. It will come to me when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to me, and that's what
And it
like
does. It'll come. It'll come. I had some Malabrigo yarn in my stash for, I'm not even joking, it was at least 4 years. And I finally made it into something last year. And I'm like, this is it. I love this. This is what it was meant to be.
exactly. It's like so that yarn that's there. It's like it's by Lane and Lotus. It was one of her like limited edition ones from like a yarn shop day thing that she put online, and I bought it and I was like, I kind of had an idea for it. It changed completely. It became this beautiful, beautiful asymmetric shawl that has some like really tiny detail oriented cables in it. And it's another one I have to get out for testing. But I'm just like, I'm obsessed with that. I wear that one all the time now. That it's got this beautiful like light purples and pink and like almost a blue undertone. It's just, I'm obsessed. Absolutely obsessed.
I love it. I love it. So, what are you working on right now?
So tonight, I can show you what I casted on this morning before I went to work today. Was the next temperature blanket square.
Yeah.
That is a smoke and sea green. I don't think the blue is coming through as an actual blue, but so I've got that going. I've got the socks that I'm remaking for my dad. I've got a shawl that I can't show yet because it's not quite right. I've pulled it back like a bunch of times, and like it will become what it will become. And then I have a pair of bright yellow socks on some needles that I just have the toes done. And then the other thing that I've got a bunch of hats that I've got like the first repeats done of that I have to like finish a bunch of repeats that will be like a fall release plan. And then the other thing I do, because I am completely crazy, but I go through, and when I am creatively blocked, when I don't know what to make, when I know something should be a hat or a headband that I just like, it's not, the picture's not coming to me yet based on the yarn, I knit the bands. So I have about 100 different skeins of yarn that are attached with just the hat bands knitted, like just the ribbing portion. I'm telling you, start it, do it. If you are a knitter for hats, just throw those beautiful bands on, because that way when you get inspired, when you have that moment, you're not doing like 15 rows of like rib stitch constantly and like being like, I want this done, so that like you can get to the fun part. So I have a whole bunch of like random little things going on. I have a surprise pattern. It has not been tested because it is so simplistic. It is going to be going up for free this weekend. It's coming out Saturday morning. It is a beautiful little, sorry, Tuck is barking now at things. Tuck, hush, Bubby. I don't know what he's barking at. He's probably barking at his toys because he doesn't think he can get things out of his toy box today for whatever reason. But it is a beautiful headband. It has a really cute little braided detail. There's a version that has a cable detail, and there's a version that has a horseshoe cable. So it's 3 different cables in one for this, a very simple headband, but the plan is to release it Saturday morning. I got everything done. I actually have it photographed already, but it's just going to be like a surprise release for anyone. So if they're listening to this, you will know about it ahead of time. But if not, then you'll kind of be surprised on Saturday. But it will be free through the weekend for everyone. So go online, go download it. Please enjoy it. It's kind of like my, I need to put this out there moment. So I've been waiting to release it for a long time. Like it came up, you know how like your iPhone does like memories from like last year? The first time I came up with the pattern was literally a year and 2 months ago. I came up on my like memories thing a couple months ago, and I was like, ooh, I probably should get that ready to go.
It's fun.
And it was like literally I was sending a picture to a yarn friend of being like, look how cute this is. I love how it came out. And it was like, came up as like that photo. And it's like me sitting on the couch with like the headband, like not even sewn together yet, just being held back on the needles behind my head. And you can see like one of the needles sticking out sideways. So that will be coming out this weekend. You'll have to wait to see what it looks like until Saturday, and then I don't know if you can see it behind me, but I have a full tub of like works in progress of things that I either need to pull or finish. So I really love herringbone. I've been obsessed with herringbone stuff lately. So there's quite a few things in there that have some herringbone details or herringbone panels. And I love texture and things. That's part of why I love cables, because I feel like cables give a lot of texture to knitting and to crocheting. And like the crochet cables, I think, are just as pretty as knit cables. I am not discriminatory in any way, shape, or form between them. I know some people love one more than the other. I really think it's something that like you can recapitulate the same thing in knit and crochet a lot of the time, and people overlook it. So I've been actually looking at quite a few of my patterns and trying to figure out how I can make them crochet friendly or knit friendly, so that it's reversed, like so that both, like whether you do one or the other, you can make the same thing.
That's a lot of fun. I love it when you can make them mimic each other like that.
Oh, absolutely. And I saw, like, when I wasn't that great at crochet, I saw a lot of things that were crocheted and really gorgeous, and I knew I couldn't make them yet. I knew I didn't have the skills. So that's why doing something where you can use knit or crochet to do it, you're helping everyone. And maybe like they may make it in crochet and it may give them the confidence to try it in knitting, or vice versa. Like it's something that you kind of have to ease yourself into, I think. So
that's fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask you about some of your favorites. All right. What is your favorite thing to design?
Oh, so I will say that hats and headbands are my best sellers, but my favorite thing to actually design is probably shawls. I love triangle shawls, and I love big, long infinity scarves. I am obsessed, especially ones that have like really great cables running through them or this complex looking patterns. Like those are my favorite. Those are the things I make for me. And those are the things like most of the stuff I sample and I make as designs, I give away. So I give to friends, I donate to homeless shelters, I donate to Salvation Army. It goes to like whatever group is collecting. If I've made anything that's preemie sized, it gets donated to the hospitals every year just before Christmas, so that there's like hats for babies for Christmas. And if you don't already, please think about making NICU hats, because babies always need them. There's always babies being born, and there's nothing cuter than a baby in a handmade hat. I'm obsessed with it. So I do a lot of like those for business side, probably hats, headbands. For personal, I definitely go to like shawls and scarves and like just beautiful, thick, luxurious stuff. And like the more texture, the more squish, the better. Like that is just my personality. I'm always cold, so I can always wear them. But it's yeah.
I love it. Where is your favorite place to work?
To work with like work or work with like knitting work.
Knitting work.
So knitting work. I'm actually probably I'm probably like the weirdo. I love knitting at the beach. I am someone who going to the beach is like the salt water soothes my soul. It relaxes me in a way nothing else can. I love going and sitting on the beach, sitting at sunset, just watching the sunset with my needles in my hand and knitting or crocheting or doing whatever at the beach at sunset. That is my like perfect me time. When I'm at home, I have like this little corner with I have a love affair with plants. That's the other thing that I'm mildly obsessed with. During the height of COVID, I had over 60 plants in a 1-bedroom apartment. It's probably a few too many. Yeah. So I have like a bunch of plants, and like I've got monsteras, I've got my potos, my philodendron. I have a bunch of different types of jasmine. My dad gardens a lot, so I have all these cuttings of like rare and weird hybrids, and like I've actually got a Duke of Tuscany, which is a jasmine sambaca. I just brought it back from Florida on my last trip, and it's like it had one bloom on it when I came home that's died, and I was like, okay, well, I was just getting ready to replant it into like a proper pot, and I was like, oh my God, I can't replant this. It's got 4 big blooms on it, like waiting to come out, like buds just like waiting to erupt. So I have like all my plants kind of have like, they've got this table and the sunlight coming in behind them, and I've got a little chair in that corner, and that's like my me space in my apartment for knitting. And then like you'd think it'd be behind the wall, but this is actually like a den, so I try to do like my work in here. I've got a microscope right here. I don't know if you can see it here. I can show you my microscope because like I actually have a home microscope. So it's one of those that like I'm trying really hard to keep this room as like a work room, not as like a fun room.
I think that's wise. What's your favorite thing to drink while you work?
Oh, I have a love affair with my Coca-Cola. I know it is so bad for me. Everyone is like, you need to cut back on it. I'm usually pretty good. I usually for $1 you can go to McDonald's and get a large Coke. It fits perfectly in the 30-ounce Yeti cup, so no one knows what you're drinking, because I will get my Coke at 10 o'clock in the morning and sip on it all day long. But I am a Coca-Cola person. I love regular Coke. I don't always drink the whole thing. And once it starts getting watered down, I'm done. But that's the whole point of using the Yeti, because it doesn't get dirty, but it keeps the ice. So I am a Coca-Cola person through and through. When I'm having a nice dinner, I'm out with people, red wine all the way. I'm a red wine girl. I like drier red wines rather than like the fruity ones. And I blame that completely on my father, because he buys good wine. So it's a problem that like I could never do like the $3 chuck. Like all my friends, and I was like, this tastes horrible. Like I'm a little bit of a princess that way. So it's like I've got like I'm $10-15 a bottle, so not super pricey or anything, but like nice red wine. You aerate it, you let it sit, and like just enjoy it. You have a couple glasses when you're out with friends or have people over. I'm especially partial to the Tuscan wines. I really love Tuscan wines for whatever reason. If you haven't tried them, highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend if you're a red wine person.
I love it. What is your favorite color?
Oh, pink. Pink 100%, if you couldn't tell, based on my pink Yeti. So I love my pinks. I also really love like Caribbean sea blues and like that kind of aqua-y tone. But I am pinks all the way, which is the other reason that Rosy Birch made sense, because of my love of pink. Everything has been pink my entire life. I almost wore a pink dress, and then I was like, doesn't quite go with my lipstick. I need to change. I need to put on the white. It will look better against the background. But I am a pink girl through and through. I have back when they had the Jimmy Beans had the leather bags. I got the little pink one and the big pink one, that like really light lavender color or whatever. I'm serious, those bags, I know that there were a lot of like things around them. Best yarn bags I've ever had, though. That leather stands up to me, which is like impossible to do. I break everything. I'm rough on what I own. I hate to say it. I'm a bull in a china shop, which my family knows, my friends know, like those close to me all know. Those bags stand up to me. I've been very impressed with how they've lasted.
That's great. What is your favorite season?
Oh, I'm a summer girl. I was born in the summer. I love the warm weather. It's perfect beach weather. You have so much daylight. Like the sun comes up in like 5 a.m. It goes to sleep at like 9 p.m. How could you not be happy all day? Like you got sunshine all day long. Not only that, but summertime gets the most moisture in the air. Sorry, that's my pager going off. Summertime with that moisture, you get the really beautiful, rich, powerful sunset. So I think that's the other reason I love it. You have like the reds and the oranges and like I don't. So they talk about like the green flash being an optical illusion, but I'm like sitting there and I go out and I always watch for the green flash just in case I see it. But I'm like that's it's all based on moisture in the air, and the only time you get that really is during the summer. The winters are way too dry. They're way too cold. I love the color of leaves in the fall, and I love the rich green tones, but I also like it's sad to me with all the leaves dying because I'm like, well, they don't want to die. They want to live. They want to. And then when you see everything starting and like all the new growth starting in spring, it's really pretty, but nothing's there yet. It still looks like it's dead and it still looks like it's trying to come back and you're hoping it's going to come back. So summer's kind of like that flourishy time. I think that's part of why I love it.
I love it. Are you a salty or a sweet snack person?
Ooh, depends. So I am one of the weirdo people that is actually I've got low blood pressure, so I actually have to eat a lot of salt. I've got a prescription from salt from my doctor, so like I can use it to like get insurance to pay for junk food. I'm the only person I think that they told to eat junk food. Um of all things. But I'm also like, I have a massive sweet tooth. I love anything sweet. I love Whopper candies, but you can't go off brand Whoppers. You have to go for like the real Whopper malted milk balls with that chocolate outside coating. I always have candy in my desk at work. It's a joke at this point that like I am the candy provider for our department because we had a candy cauldron when I was in residency, and now that I'm in fellowship and I have my own office and it's kind of like off to the side and reserved, you go in my drawers. There's Twix, there's Snickers, there's like anything you can imagine candy wise, it's in there at some level. And you can't skimp on candy. You always have to go for the good stuff because you can taste the difference. That and I will tell you, my favorite candy bars are the Cadbury fruit and nut bars, which you can't like, but I got spoiled because one of my best girlfriends lives in London. So she brings across the real Cadbury when she comes to visit. That's made with real milk instead of powdered milk, and you can totally taste the difference. So I'm at this point, I'm like, I can't go buy the ones at the grocery store anymore. I have to tell her to send them to me. So she sends me those, and I send her like new scarves or new mittens or hats or whatever she wants to like make up for the candy. That and Oreos. I love my Oreos. I really do for whatever reason. Those little mini Oreos that you get like when you go and donate blood, absolutely my favorite thing. I love the and like I'll go to Costco and I'll buy the whole big pack, like big box of Oreos, and I'll open a pack and like keep twisting it down, and I try to limit myself when I'm eating them, but the whole thing's gone way too fast.
Yes, yes. Okay, speaking of donating blood, you have a special offer for people that you
Yes.
wanted to
Um,
share. Why don't you tell us about that?
so I've mentioned it a bunch of times on my page, so I don't think it will come as news to anyone. But because blood is so important and like such an integral part of surgeries in the hospital and people who have cancer and are getting chemotherapy and everything else, and because it's so near and dear to my heart, one of the things that I offer is if you go donate blood, if you go and try to donate blood, even if you're turned away, if you send me a message, send me something like send me a photo of your donor thing or a photo of your appointment, whatever, just to say like, hey, look, I went, I tried, or look, I went, I donated. I actually will send you a code for a free pattern. That is my thank you for helping and like giving back to the community. Giving blood is one of the most altruistic things that a human being can do, in my opinion, because you go and you said, and if you're just donating whole blood, I know everyone's like, oh, I don't have like 2 hours to go and sit there and do it. It doesn't actually take that long. You go, you show up, you make an appointment, they take you within minutes, they go through your history. If you've done the rapid pass for Red Cross or answered the donor health questions before you get there, which you can do on your phone now, it takes minutes to do it. It's so quick. You can do those ahead of time. You're through. They get you on the machine. It's 5 to 7 minutes with a needle in your arm if you're just donating whole blood. And that whole blood could go and help save 3 people because we separate it out into components. So the fact that 5 to 7 minutes with a needle in your arm can save 3 lives is just like so mind-blowing to me. And I've been really lucky in the last few weeks that I've been out at the donor drives, been able to talk to the community and kind of help educate on like how important this is. Because a lot of people just do it because they've been like, oh, well, I had a friend who needed blood, so I thought I would come and donate to just like help the world. And it's like, well, you're doing so much good, you don't even realize it. So my way of saying thank you is just like offering a free pattern, doing what I can do to help like just encourage and get the message out there. And I will also plug, I'm in the Northeast where Red Cross is super duper prominent. In the Southeast, they use One Blood. I know Red Cross right now, if you go and donate right now, you get a beautiful little like fun metal water bottle. And you get stickers, and stickers are the best thing in the world. And I'm sorry, I have them here. I brought them home so I could show you guys. But they'll give you a thing of stickers. And my favorite sticker on here is this one. And it says, give blood, get cookies. Everybody wins. Because there's nothing better than that. You do get snacks whenever you go donate blood, or even if you try to donate blood, you will get snacks. And like, what more could you ask for? You get fed, you get water or juice, and then like you get to help other people. It's great. And then if you message me afterwards, I will send you a code for a pattern. Every time you donate, it doesn't matter whether you do it once or 1,000 times, like I will send you a code every single time if you want to message me every single time, just because it's something that is very important to me. And it's something like, because I have low blood pressure, because I have a fainting condition, I can't give blood. And that breaks my heart. So I'm doing everything I can to get the education out about how it helps and what we do with it and who it's going to, and like doing my part to kind of promote it, even if I can't be the person with a needle in my arm. I've tried. Trust me, I've tried. I keep going in, and I was talking to the medical director and I was like, can you just make an exception? I haven't fainted in a really long time. I promise I'll be okay. I'll just lay on the bed extra. And he was like, no, it's for your own safety that you can't. And I was like, dang it. I keep trying. I will continue to try, I'm sure. But it's the questions that they ask. It's really just, it's for your own safety. It's for the safety of the blood supply. We don't want like, and everyone freaks out about like, oh, well, how safe is blood? Actually, it is one of the safest things we can do to you in a hospital. It is the most prescribed procedure in a hospital is giving blood. And I will tell you that the hospital that I work for, talking about platelets alone, we're going through 25 to 30 platelets a day. And if we don't have donors for that, we can't be giving cancer patients platelets, which means that they're walking around at risk of bleeding. So we don't want them doing that. So it's so important. You can do so much good out there. But please, please, please go donate. Please go donate. And then send me a message and I'll send you patterns. And if you don't knit, if you don't crochet and you send me a pattern and you're like, I want you to make this for me, I will help you figure out how to make it, or I will make it for you. I will totally throw that out there. You can have one of my samples if you don't knit or crochet yourself and you've gone to donate blood. I will send you a sample, postage paid, everything else within the United States, because I think international shipping can get like expensive. But yes, please, please go donate. Please go donate.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Obviously related to your work and something you're very passionate about. So that's so great. So check that out. And friend, we have been talking for over an hour. It is so wonderful to chat with you and get to know more about you. I know, it goes by so fast, doesn't it?
It does. I can't believe it's been an hour. I figured we'd been like through half an hour maybe, and I was like, oh well, I'm sure she'll have other questions to fill the rest of the time too. I also talk really fast, so I apologize if anyone has trouble understanding me. I've been consciously trying to slow myself down, so imagine how fast it would have been if I wasn't doing that. But it's a quirk of my own personality that I just speak fast, so I apologize. But I can't believe it's already been over an hour.
Do not apologize. It has been wonderful talking to you. You have so many great things to share. We'll definitely have to chat again. And of course, we'll chat behind the scenes too. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. I truly, I'm so honored that you chose me for this month. I'm just like, I'm mind blown that this is like even a possibility at this stage of my career in the yarn world. So.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much. And we will definitely chat again soon.
Yes, absolutely. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody who tuned in.
Oh my goodness, such a wonderful, generous, and kind person. And she is super talented too. Check out the description below. I've got links to all of the things. Once my pattern tester series is up and rolling, I'll link to that down there too. I will link to the Facebook group. You do have to join, sign the rules, do all the things for that. But if you're ever interested in pattern testing or looking for pattern testers, that's an amazing, amazing resource. Please, please support Jazzy. Go follow her on her Instagram. That link is down below too, so that we can check out all of the gorgeous yarn she purchased and talked about together. And then go donate blood and send Jazzy a message so you can get your free pattern. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you enjoyed this, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it with a friend who might like to learn more about Jazzy too. Thank you again. It has been such a wonderful evening. Happy crafting.